Angles in standard position. Believe it or not, we have a way of representing angles in what we refer to as a standard position, and there's a significant purpose for that. And in order to kind of discover why we have to draw and be able to interpret angles in standard position, I have a couple questions for you. First, think for a second. What is the largest angle that you can measure? If you need to, pause the presentation at this time while you think of your response. But if you're thinking through, I'm willing to bet that the majority of us would probably start off and say, well, the largest angle we can measure is around 360 degrees. Maybe even the 359.9 repeating, or maybe 360 degrees, because that's one complete circle. But actually, that's not necessarily true. The largest angle we can measure is actually greater than 360. Because if we think about it, an angle doesn't have to stop at 360. It can keep going around and around and around and around and so on and so forth, which I think we get the picture. So therefore, the largest angle we can measure is actually an infinitely large angle. So now with that being said, let's go on to our second question. What's the measure of the following angle? Again, if you need to, take a moment to pause the presentation, but what I need to do is determine what is the measure of the following angle. And at this time, if I had to guess at different responses, I would think you're in the ballpark of saying around 30 to 50 degrees, somewhere in that respect. However, the angle that I was actually referring to in this case, believe it or not, is an angle measurement of negative 320 degrees. Yes, angles can actually be negative. And that's because we are missing a very important marking on this actual angle. The angle that a lot of you actually probably were calculating was that measure inside the tube. However, the angle I was actually looking for was the following angle, like so. And as you can see, yes, we can actually even have negative angles. So not only can angles be infinitely large, they can actually have a negative direction also. And that's kind of what we're going to use as a lead-in for our standard position. So angles in standard position start on the positive x-axis. That's first and foremost, that's going to be the key. We always start on the positive x-axis. And then from there, we may be opening up in the counterclockwise direction. If we open up, that will be a positive direction. However, as you saw in the previous example, we can also open down or in the clockwise position. If we open down or in the clockwise position, and let's actually just change the color to just go orange. If we go in the clockwise position, that would be a negative angle, or a standard angle in negative